Welcome to Make a Difference. He's Phil Martelli. I am Jared Phillips. We have a special national championship edition of the Make a Difference podcast coming your way right now with a very, very special guest, someone who has pretty much forever etched their name in national championship lore. Really excited to have him on.
Yes, and during my weekend in San Antonio, it ended up being about 36 hours. I crossed a spot where I had an encounter with our guest, and then 4 or 5 steps later, I had an encounter with Ryan Daly's college coach, Martin Inglesby, just to let him know that at that time that we would be reaching out to Ryan, who was in the transfer portal, different than today's transfer portal. And I got a little chill walking to the game on Saturday saying, this is the spot where I would talk to our one guest. And then Ryan Daly, who is now, it's all intertwined now that he's back at VCU. And I was walking with Philip to the game. So we'll get into that.
I was going to say, we'll get to there. That weekend in San Antonio, a lot of friends down there, right? A lot of hoops, a lot of friends, definitely a lot to get to, but they're going to wrap that all up tonight, which is extremely exciting. And like I mentioned, we have a guest on who is going to, that knows it and
knows exactly what those players are going through right at this very moment. And we're going to get there. But all the focus on tonight, I have to say, last night's result, this weekend's results in women's basketball brought me to this cold opening. Yes, Gino Auriemma was a guest on Make a Difference. And yes, people recognize the 12 national championships. And when you look at people and say, and I said it yesterday at the airport, the couple next to me was rooting for South Carolina. They said, who are you rooting for? I said, well, that guy over there has been my friend for 50 years. They looked at me with disbelief, as if I was spouting untruths. Is that a word? 50 years ago, did you know that Gino Auriemma was an assistant at St. Joe's Women with Jim Foster? Both of them at the time, part-time. And Gino more part-time than Jim. After his time at St. Joe's, I convinced him to come be a JV basketball coach at Bishop Kenrick High School, his alma mater. And he had odd jobs. He was getting his degree from Westchester University, and he had odd jobs. He sold shoes in the King of Prussia Mall. He stocked shelves, and it could have been a Gennardi's because of the Montgomery County influence, could have been an Acme, but he stocked shelves overnight, then went to class, then came to practice, then went back and stocked shelves. He bartended at a legendary place in Doylestown. I can't remember the name. For some reason, Crosswind sticks in my mind. He did cement work, all while getting his degree at Westchester. Why? So he could become a Catholic school teacher and coach in the Catholic League. Debbie Ryan calls, coach of Virginia, calls me. I have a $10,000 a year job to be an assistant coach, first full-time assistant coach, University of Virginia. She hires Gino. He pulls away from his one-bedroom apartment with Kathy, his wife, with a half a trailer, not a trailer, but something you latch on the back, like a kid's thing on the back. That's all he owned. He tries different jobs. There's kind of a little bit of a bias against men coaching women's basketball at that time, and he lands at UConn. And I go up for my first visit, and I look around, and he literally had a closet, a janitor's closet, 3 desks, 2 phones, and that was their offices. They practiced and played on a court that was surrounded by a track. In the background was a batting cage, always active. His first camp, he called me the first day that he got 3 campers. But what he had there with Lou Perkins, his athletic director, was a vision. And what their vision was to become the best in women's basketball. So he grew into this. He's the greatest women's basketball coach of all time. I heard somebody this morning say he may be the greatest college coach, any sport, any gender, with what he has accomplished. He always had the confidence, and he always had the swagger, and he always had the belief, whether he was coaching a JV game at the pit at North Catholic or on national TV, the whole country watching. Ironically, the smartest thing that he did, the greatest testimony to his greatness, was his selection of staff. Chris Daly has been his assistant for 40 years. Every record that he has accomplished, she has accomplished, and he attributes those records to her. She's in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. She may one day become the first assistant coach, to my knowledge, in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And she's just so calm. She directed yesterday, if you watched, she directed how they cut down the net. She directed how the pictures were taken on the podium. He went into the Basketball Hall of Fame with Charles Barkley, same class as Charles Barkley. And I happened to be in attendance. We went to Gino's party, went to Charles' party, and I'll only say this about Charles. He yelled at Gino to tell him that he was better looking than Jay Wright. And he was speaking for his wife. That's what we have. And through it all, if he was to roll into Norristown today, there are guys that he would run into, whether it be at a golf course, having a beverage, getting a Zep, that would say, yo, what are you up to? Because they think it's a part-time gig. Like they don't really get it, but he has never forgotten it, and he cherishes those opportunities to be there to throw a barb instead of like break chops or break balls or anything. I don't want to say that on the air, so it's a barb. But hats off, the greatest women's basketball coach of all time, and the greatest builder of a program, of an athletic program in history, and a guest.
It's definitely on his list. I don't know where it is on his list, but it's on the list.
Somewhere on his list.
From one of the all-time greats, truly a champion many times over. Congratulations to Gino. We have another champion on the show coming up in just a second. Of course, we have to get to the Martelli Minute.
Brought to you by Status Solutions Network. Status Solutions Network is committed to making a difference by providing Alicia Law compliant safety technology to schools through a grant of use, ensuring that financial barriers never stand between students and proper safety. Each community has the power to create real change. Think about that power, a power to create real change, school safety. Learn more at statussolutions.com. That's statussolutions.com. And they bring us the Martelli Minute. Choose to give thanks, and you will find much to be thankful for. Choose to complain, and you'll find much to complain about. Choose the path. Choose gratitude. Allow yourself to recognize that you deserve happiness and joy. Don't walk around with your head down, kicking rocks, mumbling. Allow yourself to recognize that you deserve happiness and joy. Never allow a loss to defeat you. A loss is an event. Yes, you can learn from it and all those cliches. You can never allow a loss to defeat you. Your responses to challenges reveals your true character. Anybody can walk in the sun. It's those that take those challenges. I'm going to walk in the rain. That's going to show your grit. And then take a chance. Take a chance today. Bet on yourself. That's a good day. That's a good challenge. There they are, the Martelli Minute. Where do you find that?
You find that on Instagram at Phil_Martelli every morning at 6:30.
With this little caveat, not only was it 6:30, but it was 5:30 in San Antonio when I was sending those back to our social media guru, Elizabeth Jeffries. She was
That's
not
early.
She was not that happy.
No, I can't imagine.
No. So this guest, we've talked, championships are forever. I don't care if it's a CYO, high school, regular season, tournament, or a national championship. Championships are forever. They're like tattoos. And when you gather with your teammates 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you talk about those championship moments. Our guest today is a champion forever. He's the guy that made the shot. Go anywhere today. I don't care where you go on this morning of the national championship game and say to somebody, the shot. And they're going to say our guest's name. This young fella has personality for days. Like this segment is to be 22 minutes, according to my esteemed producer here. But this young fella has personality, and we can't wait to dig into that. I've been impressed with his old soul. Knew him when he was a high school player, watched him in the summer circuits, college, post-college. He really does have an old soul for a young fella. And he's a national champion for sure. But more importantly than that, Jared, this young guy, Kris Jenkins, is a champion in life. I am so excited that he has agreed to join us on this national championship morning. Kris Jenkins, welcome to Make a Difference.
How you doing, Coach? Thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate that.
So, Kris, we love to start this with this idea, but with you, I want to do it a little bit different. Kris, take us through your journey to Villanova.
Wow.
Right? That journey that started when you were 8 years old. What was the journey to get to Villanova? And then the second part of that is the journey since, in a way, you walk away from Villanova. I know you haven't left, but so post your basketball. But first, take us to how did you get to Villanova? And then after that, take us through my playing time is over. Where's my journey taking me?
Nah, I got you, Coach. First of all, thank y'all so much for having me, man. I'm honored. Like you said, today is a very big day in college sports, and a champion will be crowned tonight. So we're all excited for that. And my journey to Villanova was definitely different. Um, I wouldn't say that it was special or anything crazy. It was just different. I was born in South Carolina, lived in South Carolina till I was about 10 or 11, and then I made the transition to the Maryland DC area with the Britt family, Nate Britt, who I played against he was at UNC. So I actually had to go to court. Like I remember doing all that stuff as a kid, like going to court, having them become my legal guardians and things of that nature. So we went through all of that, and then finally all that was over, and I could finally have some sense of a normal childhood moving forward after like all the courts and all that stuff got worked out. So I spent my seventh and eighth grade years at the modern day school, Nate and I, and then we made our transition to Gonzaga College High School on I Street in Washington D.C. We played for the legendary coach Steve Turner, who just took the head coaching job at Montverde down in Florida.
Hit that again, Kris. Give him a shout out. Hit that again.
He's a legendary coach, man. I appreciate Coach Turner for all he's done on I Street, and it was definitely tough to see him leave and transition down to Florida to Montverde. When he and I spoke, that was definitely a call that I didn't want to hear. But you respect the coaches and the men that have come into your life, because you realize that you have dreams and you have goals, and they don't stop just because you get a little older.
Mhm.
You always want to keep that mentality of just being better and pushing forward. And I'm happy for Coach Turner, and I know that he'll do a great job, because not only is he a great man, he's a great coach. And he knows what to do. He knows how to develop talent, and once he connects with you off the court, it makes playing for him a lot easier. So then that makes my transition to Villanova. I wouldn't say easy, but it made it easier, coming from the two schools that I went from, playing for the coaches that I did, and then now going to play for the Hall of Fame coach, Jay Wright. It was definitely a transition, but I stepped on campus kind of motivated. Early on in my recruiting, it kind of didn't go the way that I wanted it to go. So I kind of remember coming up here to Villanova, and they weren't really recruiting me. So when I got here on campus as a scholarship athlete, I still kept that chip on my shoulder, remembering that there was a time where, Coach Wright didn't recruit me as hard as he was recruiting others. But to have him have to circle back and have me be a scholarship player, and have him think that I was good enough to play in the Big East and be a dominant player, that just added to my confidence. Like you say, I did come in with a lot of personality, and extremely high confidence is something that my teammates will tell you that I never lacked. And it was something that hopefully anybody who was on our teams, they drew that from me, is to just always be confident in your abilities, because we put the work in. We work extremely hard, spend a lot of time, sacrifice a lot. So you're right. I'm going to be extremely confident. I'm gonna believe in myself when it's time to go. And Coach Wright fed into that. Um, he was committed to the goal. He challenged all of us. He held all of us accountable, and you can see that with our roster. We had a roster that's probably one of the best in the history of college sports. And every day was a grind, and every day we pushed each other to get better. And that was just the mindset that we all had at that time.
One of the
So
things that you all shared, Chris, was this love of basketball. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's something that we could never ever put a price on or put like a gauge on, man. If it was two things, I would say that love for the game, but this also piggies back off of that, was we were extremely competitive, man. Like, it was, I can't even find the words or like to try to describe it. It was one of those things you kind of had to be around us. Like, that's literally just what drove our energy, all of us, all the way down to our relationship with the coaches, man. It was just, I this dude, if he don't think I'm good, like, I'm really gonna show this dude that I can really play, and I can play against anybody on any level. We can be anywhere in the U.S. Like, that confidence and that competitive drive, man. We fueled each other. Um, from the first guy that starts to the walk-ons, man. Everybody just had an incredible amount of competitiveness, and like you said, that love of the game. We all had that love of the game clause that was just ingrained in our hearts. We didn't need a
Mm,
contract for
mm,
that.
mm, 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 mm. So, Chris, when you walk off the Villanova campus, right, the last game, what has transpired for you in terms of your journey?
Yeah, so then, we finished our careers. We played professionally. I did some NBA G League stuff. I played overseas a couple years. And now this past season was my first year broadcasting college game for FS1. So the transition has been smooth. I was a communications major here at Villanova, so my transition has been awesome. The connections and the friends that I've made throughout this process, they're only going to continue to grow. And I'm just going to continue to work hard at it, man. I'm going to continue to study. I'm going to make sure that I continue to go to these practices and these walkthroughs and meet all of the coaches that I can, because I get a kick out of meeting the players and going to practices probably just as much as they get out of seeing me.
Mhm. That's true.
So the transition has been good, man. Life has been a blessing. I don't have anything to kind of complain about, because everything I want is still kind of right in front of me,
There you
and
go.
I'm ready to go.
Chris, I've always been fascinated to know, because Phil's mentioned this, the transition from game film as a coach to a color commentator. Have you noticed that? Like, do you feel like you watch more game film as a color commentator than you did as a player, maybe? Or what's
Dude,
that difference like?
Dude, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's pretty close. Dude, it's pretty close, dog. It's pretty close because you want to be great at it. You know,
Right.
you're competitive. Like I try to tell people all the time that, I'll still outshoot you for sure, but I want to beat you at pretty much whatever we're doing. I'm trying to win within the rules, and I'm trying to be the best at it. And I'm trying to make friends along the way. But if you don't like me because I want to win, then that comes with it. That's a part of it. I accept that too. So um, yeah, man, just it's definitely a lot of film, a lot of talking on the phone, a lot of a lot of shaking hands, and you still get there early, which I still love. I get to the arena early. I'm able to have that time where I can get my mind right and refocused and things like that. So you find ways to kind of connect and make it similar, but there's nothing that'll replace playing the game. But I think I'm in a good spot. I don't have any complaints.
I want to take you back. You brought it up. Give people a flavor, a sense. WCAC, summer and spring basketball in the DC, the DMV, and Gonzaga.
Man.
Give us a flavor of that. Like I've sat in those gyms and I've been all these places, but people out there, you get chills even thinking about it. For you, what did that all give you? Give us that flavor, that atmosphere.
Honestly, like you said, it's one of those things where you have to experience it, man. It's just the weather's beautiful, the basketball is even better. The environments are, if you love hoops, there's no environments that are better. Um, like I said, the love of the game clause, I feel like every kid has that in our area because in order for you to be good, you can't just work on skills or this or that. You really have to love the game because we're all working on our game. So what's going to separate you? And I'm going to be able to tell if you don't really love the game like I do.
There you go.
And I'm going to use that to my advantage. So to have those experiences, to do that with the group of guys, like to play against DeMatha, to play against St. John's, to play against Bishop O'Connell, Paul VI, and then you have Sidwell, who had Josh Hart and all those guys when I was in school. And then you have Georgetown Prep, who had Markel Starks and all of those guys as well. And then you have the Landon School, who had Christian Webster and all of those guys who were good. And then you also have the public school, where you may have two or three public school teams that'll go undefeated because they're so good in the area. You know about Roosevelt and Maryland, and then you're just so many great powerhouses. The area is just it's unmatched. You're gonna find a star. You're gonna find a star caliber player pretty much every game you watch, and you're gonna find a difference maker every game you watch. You're gonna find a defensive grinder, stopper, a rebounder, a guy who blocks shot. You're gonna find a culture guy. You're gonna find all of that in all of these games that you watch when you go down to the Maryland D.C. area because the for the love of the game clause is strong there, and we take pride in being the best basketball area. I feel like in the country, we have the best conference, and I feel like every year we turning out high level college guys and NBA guys. Still to this day.
Just to fill you in, Jared, because you're young, you understand that Kris was living in his home with Nate Britt, his brother. Nate Britt is being recruited by everybody in the country, and Kris is there being recruited, but has to build this thing up. Think about that household where Nate walks in and says, "I'm going to Carolina," and Kris says, "I'm going to Villanova." And then you don't think there's a basketball god? They put those teams together for a national championship. Come on now. Come on now, Kris.
Right.
Let me be in that movie, brother. Let me be in that movie.
No doubt, coach. We casted you first.
There we go. I'm going to give you I want you to fill this in with one sentence. It's going to be impossible, but I'm going to put you to the test here. Okay. I'm your college professor, and here's your essay question. Describe what this game has given you.
Wow. This game has given me, honestly, this game has given me, it's given me life. It's given me a reason to strive for something outside of what I can see. Um, But this game has also given me a platform to show kids that, we all come from situations that are less than ideal. And that's never a reason to let someone hinder you or use that as an excuse kind of to not be successful or not strive to be whatever it is that you want to be. Um, because I was always taught you either pay for it now or you pay for it later. And I looked at it like, well, I can go through, I guess, getting picked on and not being kind of cool now, as opposed to getting where I want to be later. Or I could be cool and not get picked on and do all that crazy stuff and then get picked on by law enforcement and other things throughout
Mm,
life later.
mm.
So I always just I wanted to give myself a great chance. And I know that now hopefully I've been an example that, you don't have to come from the best situations. You don't have to live with your biological parents. You can still have a great relationship with everyone and still go out and get what you want. That's one thing I always love my biological parents for, and I'll always get them credit for, is parents always say they want what's best for their kids. But if what's best for your kid is to not be around you and be somewhere else to get it, a lot of parents don't make that decision for what's best, and they selfishly want to keep their children with them. But my parents, they knew that I had a dream since I was young, and they probably knew the effects that it would have on them if I got older and realized like, dang, well, why didn't y'all let me just go for it, as opposed to, nah, we're gonna let you go for it because this is your life and this is your dreams. And I'll always respect my parents for that, and give them the utmost respect and credit because um, they let me chase my dreams, man. They let me go and get it, and they didn't hold my hand.
Mm. Jared, right there, that piece right there of Make a Difference podcast should be played for every kid playing spring and summer ball and for every parent who is backing their children. Because it's not about throwing more money and more trainers and that kind of thing. It's about getting down to really the character that can be built through this game. That was so beautifully said, Kris. Thank you for sharing that.
No doubt.
You've been all over. You've played with a lot of guys. Here's the next question in your final exam. Best teammate you've played with and why?
Whew.
Come on, Kris. You didn't think this was
Mm.
going to be easy. You know
Yeah,
me.
hey, I'm not gonna lie, coach. That's harder than any question I've had on any exam, man. I'll be honest with you. And at Villanova, we taking stats and we in all types of crazy courses. That's by far the hardest question I ever been asked by anyone, because I was fortunate, man. I was blessed. I tell people that all the time, man. I was so blessed and fortunate to be on the teams with the guys that I played basketball with here at Villanova, even to my freshman year. People don't know that James Taj Bell, who was a senior, he, Tony Chino, and all those guys, I had known James Bell since I was 14 years old.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? I had met him as a young kid. So we had built a connection and a relationship since I was in middle school. So if I had to say my best teammate though, I mean honestly, it has to be Miss Jalen. It got to be Jalen.
There we go.
It has to be Jalen only because um, I want to say Josh Hart because Josh and I are the same class. We grew up in the same area. But the reason I'll give the nod to Jalen is because Jalen was probably the most mature freshman I had ever met in my life. Um, he came in with a specific plan and a goal. He had a work ethic and a drive that was just as strong or stronger than anybody's that was around us or on our team. And he got everything done in 3 years. Graduated college in 3 years, won 2 national championships in 3 years, won every Player of the Year award his junior year of college, first team All American. Like he did all of that stuff. But um, he's also one of the greatest young men that I've ever been around as well, just because you see how he interacts with his sister, how he interacts with his dad, his mom, his grandparents. Like I said, I had never seen a young kid that mature coming in as a freshman. So I would definitely give it to Jalen. Just a A1 individual, obviously on the court, but much great respect for the man that's off the court as well.
Chills. All right, Kris, here you go. I'm taking you to San Antonio, and Kris is the person I saw walking down the street in San Antonio.
Yep.
I saw Kris. We stopped and talked.
Yep.
And he and I had this laugh. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of people walking by us. Just two people having a conversation. And I remember saying this to Kris. I said, Kris, you realize that you're the most famous person on this street that nobody knows? No one's going to stop and say, hey, that's Kris Jenkins. He made the shot. No, remember that, Kris? We were walking right down the street. There was a food truck right here.
I remember that.
And he had the great big smile on his face, and people were walking. We were hugging, and they must have thought that it was just too like, oh, this is some old coach and one of his players. But it was a rival player, a national champion. No one noticed. 10 steps later, I saw Martin Inglesby, whose father Tom is a Villanova legend. Martin and I said, we at St. Joseph's will be involved in Ryan Daly's recruiting. He was transferring, no hard feelings. And I just, out of respect, I want to make sure you know that. So Kris, I'm taking you back to San Antonio right now. You're in the Houston hotel. You're in the Florida hotel. What's going on in those kids' minds, hearts, their stomachs? What's it like this morning of a national championship game?
So you try to keep it as normal as possible. You go through your same pregame routine that you've done all year, whether that be you guys get up and have breakfast, you have film, you get to the gym and shoot around. Like, you try to keep it as normal as possible, but you're excited. Like, there's no other way around it. Like, you understand the magnitude of this game. You understand that everyone in America is going to be watching who loves sports. This is a game that can make or break your career, but you're trying to keep it as normal as possible, which is tough especially for a young college man, and especially now because they got a little change in their pocket. So I'm not sure what's going through their minds, if they relaxing, they're playing video games, but you try to find something to keep yourself at a level where you don't get too high and you don't get too low, and you're ready to go for game time, because at the end of the day, it's about winning. And that's all we cared about, was like, look, man, everybody's against us. We're playing against North Carolina. This is America's team. Nobody expects us to win but us and everybody in Philadelphia. And that's enough. We're good enough. Like, we've been doing this all year. We've been beating teams all year. We've been beating teams in the ACC all year. So now you're just reassuring yourself. You're going through your scouting report. You're building your confidence so that your troops are ready to go. That's it.
And sometimes in those situations, you could do too much.
Yep.
Like, let's watch more film. So let's say that the Villanova team or the Houston team or the Florida team is used to 12 minutes of film. There's a lot of times when coaches will say, well, maybe if we watch 20 minutes of film, too much can be too much.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be real. Kris makes a great point about routine is the big deal. Like, even to the point, I'll exaggerate for a second, even to the point, if there's time in the day where these young guys could get on an online course, like, there's not much going on the Florida campus or the Houston campus, really. But if that was part of your routine, if that's what Kris experienced when he was on the road at Providence, then he should experience that the day of the national championship game.
Absolutely.
It's really a neat perspective. And there it is. That's from a national champion telling you what's going on. Kris, the ball goes in. It's forever the shot.
Yes, sir.
You go back to campus. Can you remember the next few days, what that was like? Are you still in a cloud? When do your feet hit the ground and you go, okay, time to get on to my next, not challenge, but opportunity?
It's funny that you say that, Coach. Man, I definitely appreciate that question. And if I'm being honest with you, it was probably right when we landed after you do the parade in front of the school and all that stuff, because some of us were coming upon a decision if we were gonna, because this was around the time where they just started letting guys work out for teams and go back to school.
Mhm.
Like this is around that time where you could work out for NBA teams, get invited to the combine, do all that stuff, and still have time to come back. So a lot of us were working out and training kind of to see if we were going to make that transition and do the NBA stuff and see where we kind of fared. So my feet kind of didn't really get up under me. Those next couple of days were crazy as far as like having fun, but we still went to class. Um, yeah, no, we still kind of did our normal stuff. We still ate lunch together. We still went to class. If guys had study hall, like guys still had to go to their study hall. If you had to go make up a paper, if you had to meet with like you know what I'm saying, those next couple of days where they like kind of catch up with stuff that you had kind of missed. And obviously professors are going to be like, yeah, no, you didn't miss anything, great time, great job, things of that nature, but you still have to take the responsibility like, hey, I know I might have missed some things while I was gone. Is there anything to, what I mean, to make up here or things I could do to catch up to get back on course? So the next couple of days were that, and then working out, and then figuring out if some of us were going to do the NBA workouts and stuff.
And he makes a really good point because of this. People think it was like a 1 week thing with the Final Four. No, this has been going on for 3 weeks, and
Yeah.
for Villanova, it's really 4 weeks because they're doing Big East tournament away from campus, then the first 2 rounds, then the regional round. Now, so you really you're going through this thing at warp speed, but Professor, I know there's something out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like a little bonus for representing the school a certain way, but I don't want to cheat the system either.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I went to Gonzaga and everywhere, so I'm used to doing all my stuff and getting all my stuff turned in on time and being a little early, things of that nature. Because you also got to remember you're coming off the conference tournament as well,
Yes.
so it's a lot kind of that's going on. So our support team and our coaching staff, they did a great job in keeping us dialed in and focused, and then also giving us that time to make sure that we're good and caught up.
Kris, is it a little bit of a blessing that Villanova is such a small school that you probably weren't mobbed going to some of these lectures still, like after the championship, right? I mean,
Kris
like
Jenkins was mobbed.
Yeah.
He hasn't brought up his trip to Kelly's. I want to hear about that one, Kris.
Yeah, I think it definitely helped our focus that the school isn't like this, what I mean, massive, super massive university. I also think that's why a lot of us chose it, because it was a basketball school. And what I mean, basketball is top dog, big priority here, as well as education and the relationships and the alumni. So it kind of made it easier, it being a smaller school. But I definitely would agree that if we were, let's say, at NC State, or what I mean, or Arizona State, what I mean, one of these massive big schools, it definitely would have added to the distractions for sure.
All right, Kris, I have 3. You've given us one already, but I'm going to give you that name again. I want a reaction to this name, Jay Wright.
That's my guy, man. He gave me a chance. He thought I was good enough. He believed in me. He challenged me. He pushed me to be the best version of myself on and off the court. Like, he was one of the few coaches that would tell me, because I went to Gonzaga, so I had a good academic background and stuff like that. But he was probably one of the few people when I got to college that was like, I mean, like, you getting good grades and stuff, but like you're probably not trying as much as you can academically. So he just wanted the best for me, and we have a great relationship. We still talk to this day. Um, I've seen you at a couple. I've had the honor to come to a couple of his Hall of Fame inductions, and I've seen you at a few as well. So yeah, man, he's the guy. He's George Clooney. He's super fly. He stay clean. He Yeah, nah, J Dub, that's my guy, man. I love J Dub. Much love to my guy, man.
Ryan Arch.
He made me famous. I tell him that all the time. It's a running joke between us because, when we were in school, I gave Ryan a hard time sometimes just because I knew Coach Wright loved him so much that I would go out my way to pick on him and do things like that sometimes. But it was just my way of showing him that I really loved him and that we were always cool. And I remember my first encounter with Ryan, and I was younger, so my mind wasn't as forward and all. So I was like, man, who is this white kid that got 30, bruh? Like, I wasn't at that time. I wasn't used to too many people scoring 30, but let alone like this white kid from Pennsylvania. He got no one else on his team, and he legit. I'm like, yo, let me go look at the score. Like, no, he got 30. Like he got 30. So shout out to my guy Arch, man, one of my favorite people. Again, he was somebody who challenged us all, man. He made us all better. Um, the one thing I respect about Ryan the most is he had been a 4-year captain at Villanova,
Mm.
a 4-year starter, and playing for Coach Wright, that's almost impossible. And for him to have the ball in the national championship, to make a play crossover with the game on the line, he had made so many game winners throughout his career. And for him to see me wide open and for him to not even have a thought to shoot it or anything other than to just kick it, 4-year senior captain, starter, last game ever in a Villanova uniform. I think that just goes to show you what kind of person he is and what kind of team we all became.
And then the last one I want to give you is Father Rob. Father Rob Hagan.
He's the soul, man. He's even still to this day when I see Father Rob, man, I give him a big hug and I say, man, please keep praying for me. Because the sermons and the prayers and just the nutrients for our soul that he would give us before games. Um, I never took any of that for granted, and I really appreciated that because it always kept me humble and it always kept me in the right mind frame. And I always felt like I needed that prayer right before we pray because I wanted to ask God to forgive me for what I was getting ready to do because I thought we was getting ready to go crazy on the court. So I always wanted that, and I felt like it was something that we all needed, and we still do that to this day. That's something that'll always be a part of the Villanova basketball tradition is our pregame prayers before we eat pregame meal with Father Rob.
He is this is the example, right? Like these ideas. This is an old soul that we're talking to. That Father Rob is some of the things that he has sent me, and we're supposed to be these bitter rivals, but some of these things that he sent me to center me or to lift me when I was down and out, or to bring me down when I was too high. Uh, he's a really, really, really great individual and a great priest. Uh, Kris, last two for me. You're sitting down that final day, and it's going to be Villanova and fill in whatever school you want to fill in there. How has the decision to go to Villanova made a difference in your life?
Oh man, wow. That's again, that's another amazing question. Um, so if I didn't attend Villanova, I was probably going to attend Miami or Xavier, probably one of those schools to play for Coach L or Coach Mac. But the impact Villanova has had on me, man, some of my favorite stories that I'll ever get is I watched that game with my great granddad, and he's passed away now. But like that was like our last game that we watched
Mm.
together, and you know what I mean, when you hit that shot, like he's been a Villanova fan his whole life, and he cried. You know what I mean? It's like the stories and the relationships and the people that you meet like that. Those are the stories that really stick to your heart because, Coach, you understand like when you're in it, man. You worried about ball. I mean, that's the only thing that's on your mind. That's the only thing you care about. Especially at that time in my life, man. The only thing I cared about was playing basketball and winning and being part of our team. So the impact that I feel like I've had in that regard to like help make people happy. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like through the game of basketball is something that I put my heart, my life, my body on the line for, and for people to appreciate the talent, appreciate the person, to go out of their way to say hello. Um, it definitely fueled me, and it makes me want to continue to give back and make a difference even more, and make sure that the kids that are coming up behind me, like, yeah, I had a good career and I was a good player, but none of that really means anything if I can't get you guys to be better than I was or be just as good. So I try to make sure that I spread that love and give that game back, because I had so many people help me along my journey. You know what I mean? I had an entire family take me in. So who am I to not lend a helping hand in some way? So that's kind of just how I look at it.
This game, this game, memories and relationships. And then the third prong is the fact that you have the power to put a smile on someone else's face. That's exactly what Kris Jenkins just said. The smiles. Kris, I would say it all the time. I could be driving down the road and to see somebody honk and give you a thumbs up, and you know what that means. That means they watched that game with some of their loved ones. That's what it meant.
Yeah.
It, and they valued you as a person and not as a commodity. Not as a commodity. This has been sensational. I knew it. Kris, I'm going to ask you one more tough one.
Yep.
Who's made a difference in Kris Jenkins' life?
Oh man. Too many people that I could name, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like I spoke on earlier, I will always start up front and with God and give him all the credit, because he's given me the ability, and he's put me in a position to work hard. You know, he didn't make me work hard. He gave me the opportunity and said, "Hey, through hard work, dedication, and continuing to believe, sky's the limit for you." And then my biological family, um, they did what was best for me. And again, a lot of parents say that, but the actions don't follow. And my parents, we can look each other in the face, in the eyes, and know at the end of the day, they did what was best for me. And I'll always be appreciative of that. But I gotta honestly say, who made a difference in my life was the Britt family. Nate Britt, Melody Britt, Natalia Britt, and Nate Britt the second. They accepted me for who I was, and they gave me a fair shot at life, man. I that's really what it comes down to. They really gave me an honest, fair shot to live out a dream, and to grab all the little nuggets and all the things that I needed along the way. Um, and the people that I was able to meet just because I was associated with their family. Because Nate's dad he's a retired DC detective, 25 plus years on the DC Police Department. So the the tough love, the stern hand, the guidance, it all helped shape us. And then I got to give a special shout out to Nate, because we did everything together. We got our spankers together. We worked out together. We made our college decisions together. We wrote our college list together on a board, and he marked off his, and I marked off mine. And we went to middle school together. We went to high school together. Um,
Beautiful.
so Nate Britt the second definitely made an impact and a difference in my life, just because he was one of the first men, and I can say men because we were young men, and I didn't know it at the time, but he was one of the first men to show me unconditional love, because he shared he shared his parents and his family with me,
Wow.
and he didn't have to, you know. He was the only son, he was the oldest, and for him to be so selfless and think of, honestly, just to think of me. Like, to think of me in the better situation that I was going to be put in, and to know that he was going to have to take less, I think that really says a lot about him. And that's how I want to continue to move forward in my life and make a difference, is to think about others and take what I get along the way.
So, Jared, life lessons here from Kris Jenkins. He knew that people turned around and lifted him. And now what is he doing? He's turning around and lifting the next generation. I knew it. I said it in the open. This is a special young guy. Kris Jenkins, I'm standing with you back to back, my man. You need me, you call me. When we see each other, we hug it up. But I got you, Kris. I want to be part of that, make a difference in your world too.
Yes, sir, Coach. Thank you. I definitely appreciate you, and I want to give you credit and flowers too, because you are a phenomenal human, a phenomenal coach, a great competitor. I enjoyed competing against you when I was in school. Um, like you said, on the court, it was to win, and I knew that you were going to have your team ready to go, and I knew that if we didn't come to play, that we could lose. So I thank you for adding to my competitive spirit, my competitive nature and fire. And like you said, off the court, we see each other, we hug, we talk, we laugh. I've been an Eagles fan since I was a kid, so I think I fit in well. I think
Hey
I
to the
fit in
audience,
well.
Kris.
But I appreciate you for sure. I
Thanks.
remember watching your teams growing up as a kid. I grew up in the DMV area, so Big Delonte West, Jameer Nelson, watching those guys growing up. Um, yeah, nah. So to grow up and compete against you again, these are things that you dream of, and you never know that are achievable until you're on the court for a jump ball, and Phil Martelli is the coach on the other side.
Thanks, Kris. I hope to see you soon.
Yes, sir, Coach. We definitely will.
Kris, I just want to let you know I kind of let you off the hook a little bit today. I'm a 2017 grad at Temple. I have a lot of inside sources at Nova during your time. I think I know what that first trip to Kelly's might have been like after the championship. But like I said, we're keeping it light here on the
Yeah,
Make It
yeah, yeah.
podcast.
We
Don't
can't
worry
we
about
can't put that on the on the net. We can't. But we get on the phone. We can top it up on some phone calls, man.
it. Kris, appreciate it, man.
Take
Thanks
care,
so much.
Kris. Thank you.
Yes, sir. God bless y'all. Thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Just that's a championship level
No question.
guest, a championship level episode right there.
That was really great. But eventually we have to cover where I was.
And it features a little bit more Kris Jenkins, actually. That this weekend is quite a weekend for you.
Well, first I started
get
with
to.
a travel to the NIT semifinals, and I got chills. Hinkle Fieldhouse, legendary building. I watched Loyola and Chattanooga and UC Irvine, North Texas, Danny Earl and Ross Hodge, Russell Turner, Drew Valentine. They coached their teams. It was a competition. It wasn't anybody mailing it in because it was the NIT. I want to make a special note to the athletic director at North Texas and the athletic director at West Virginia. Ross Hodge had been given the job at West Virginia, had earned the job, and yet he coached North Texas through the tournament with the blessing of his athletic director and the West Virginia athletic director. And I could tell you, I sat behind the bench and he didn't let up on anybody. If somebody needed to be chopped a little bit and barked at a little bit, he did that all throughout their semifinal game. And to know that those two athletic directors, those two institutions collaborated to make the experience about the North Texas players, salute to all of them involved. I got a chance to spend time with Tubby Smith and Jeff Jones and Gary Waters and the legendary Mort. Mort is a Villanova manager who now runs the NIT, and he does it flawlessly. Most especially, he does it with a laugh. And it is not because it's funny, but it's fun. So I appreciate everybody for allowing me to have that for a couple of days. I came home and then just trying to get as much done as I can. I was on the Bro Cave podcast. Young man's a student at Penn State, and he's had everybody on there. He called and said, "Would you do it?" And of course, I said, "Yeah, we could do that." Thursday evening, before I left for San Antonio, the Big East Rewind. Chuck Everson, Mark Plansky. They gave us a chance to connect with them, and really, it was the same competitors, but we have each other's back. Then on to San Antonio, and moving around and walking down the street to a dinner, Jalen Rose. Walk into a restaurant, Charles, Bill Raftery, Jay Wright, people at the next table over. Hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm a season ticket holder for Phillies, Eagles, Sixers. And I said, no Flyers? He goes, no, I haven't, never a hockey guy.
All three.
So,
I mean, 3 is insane.
Yeah, it was terrific to meet him. He works for a fellow by the name of Dave Grandy, who was a high school player at St. Joe Prep. He was a senior. I was a sophomore. Dave has done remarkable things in the steel industry. This gentleman worked with him. And then Saturday, moving and shaking, and too many names to scream and shout about. But I did get to see the head coach of VCU walking down the street, and he was on his way to a meeting with Nike.
Wow.
I'm no longer invited to those kind of meetings. Had a chance to go to the games with him in that setting, and the noise and the passion. It was real. It's a long day. Doubleheader is a long day. Sunday morning, I got up and I was honored by the NABC to go to their champions brunch. Regular season champions get invited to the brunch, the staff. They get honored by Hilliard. And I was fortunate enough to receive the Golden Anniversary Award. Zach Gelb was the MC.
Presented by Zach Gelb, friend of the show, my buddy from Temple.
I got to speak to him. And how about when I look up and the people sitting at our table, Hunter Dickinson, Joey P. The Joey P story deserves its own. I'll just give you the nugget. 10-year-old kid, Joey P., sitting in San Antonio in 2018. I'm doing a radio interview. I look to my right. He's sitting at the table. I ask him, are you going to the game? And he said, no. My father's out there trying to scalp tickets. I said, go get your father. He brings his father, who comes to the breakfast yesterday, Rick. Joey P. and Rick sat with Judy and I at the national championship game, Kansas, North Carolina. His father wanted to give me money as if I was a scalper. I said, no, you have to come with me as long as he's doing his homework. Joey P. today works for an NIL agent. He worked for an NBA agent who represents Franz Wagner, Mo Wagner. They work with Hunter. That's the world that we live in. It's so small. That's just a nugget of the story. You need the whole Joey P story at some point. Fly home. Now, I want you to think about this, Jared, and everybody out there that knows me. If you don't know me, I am telling you, I have made the statement. To me, the computer is a little bit of a fad. It'll go away. We don't really have to. Okay, that's the way I lived my life for a long time. Then I went to Michigan and went, everything's on the computer.
Everything's computer.
I have to figure this out. But yesterday in the San Antonio airport, here's the juggling that was going on. The Phils are playing the Dodgers. I have to see that game. And Connecticut, South Carolina is starting. I have to see that game. Michael Doyle Jr., and Mark Huber, St. Joseph Preparatory School for Young Men graduate, was an assistant at LaSalle. They set me up. I have an iPad, a laptop, and my phone as I'm watching these games. People looked at me strangely, but I had to get the Phils. We got on the plane, ninth inning, Alvarado on the bump. and I'm yelling to Mark Hubert to tell me pitch by pitch what's going on. Michael Doyle sets me up, and I watch the UConn game. It freezes. I pass him the laptop. He gets it again. So I was able to watch the UConn game. And above and beyond their dominance from Friday night and from Sunday, I think the picture that goes forth forever is the embrace with Paige Beckers and Gino. I was just, that's why we do it. We do it for the relationships. And he has done it better than anybody. So, again, a shout out to our Make a Difference guest, Gino Auriemma. And then starts a new week with no ball. So it's probably going to be a lot calmer, you would think.
You would think, but no.
Probably not. So, Channel 17 for a recap of the tournament. By the way, it's a fascinating game. Houston's manliness against Walter Clayton Jr., who is really taking on, for those that remember, a Danny Manning approach. Danny Manning won the national championship with Kansas. The team was called Danny Manning and the Miracles. And that may well be the case. Something about Houston getting that win that way over Duke that should propel them through these 40 minutes. And then the challenge is going to be on Wednesday morning when you wake up. If somebody says to you, who is Houston's best player? You may not know because it is a collective effort. But I went on Channel 17 for that. The legendary Bill Wormdell, he has a radio show. A blast from the past, Alexander Saznoff has become a TV producer in Canada. And he's going to pitch me this afternoon about doing a reality TV show about a Canadian high school that's similar to a program that's being done by the guys that bought the soccer Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds bought Wrexham out.
And then they did a story.
Yeah.
That's what Alex is proposing at 3:30. Bet MGM radio at 8 o'clock tonight. And then a little bit of the tip-off. Since there's no Phil's game, I can fully go in on basketball here. Tomorrow, John Weatherspoon, fascinating guy, does an awful lot with the NBA. He wants to do part of his podcast tomorrow. Wednesday morning, Monsignor Bonner, their class on vocation. And then Markwood dinner being run by Joe Rabzinski, the Hunters, the Hunter brothers, legendary Delco Bonner players, Dave Pauly. They honor the player of the year in the Catholic League, the player of the year in the Public League, the player of the year in the Interact, the suburban player of the year, the suburban coach, the Public League coach, the Catholic League coach. They're honoring legends of the game. This name won't resonate with a lot of people, but he played on the West Philadelphia high school team with Gene Banks and Clarence Tillman. Daryl City Lights Warwick is being honored. And then I'm going to speak for about 8 to 10 minutes to the Markwood Club. That's Wednesday night. Thursday, the Pennsylvania Pupil Services Association has invited me to address them in Lancaster. They asked me if I wanted to stay overnight. I declined. I promised them that I would be there. I would be there early to get the flavor for the room. Pennsylvania Pupil Services Association. Excited about that. And then I got nothing Friday and Saturday.
Well, it's probably a couple of Phil's games you can kick back and watch, I'm sure.
I'll definitely be tuned in. But now, as the season has wrapped up, and you and I have discussed this, very anxious to get back into the community. If there are people out there, we have a baseball versus cancer event coming up in a couple of weeks. Anxious to get into the community. But You know what we might need Friday and Saturday for? To rest up for next week's guest, because next week's guest is absolutely positively everywhere. We are going to ask the question for him to describe his sleep pattern, because I don't think it exists. After what he has gone through this basketball season, we're going to put a nice bow on basketball, and then we're coming back strong in the community in April, May, and June.
I don't know if we want to spoil our next guest just yet,
No.
but it's like if we do a Where in the World is Phil Martelli, we might have to do a Where in the World is blank, because his day-to-day, it might rival yours.
No, it surpasses mine. I'm ready to say it right away, and he will be another one just like Kris Jenkins, where if you can't give us an hour and 10, split it up, because we're going to give you an hour and 10.
Oh man, another unbelievable hoops guest coming up next week. Very, very, very excited for that one. We're gonna keep that one under wraps for now. I really, really hope you were locked in for this one with Kris Jenkins. I mean, I can't think of a better person to talk national championship with. Florida and Houston tonight. I mean, really the two best teams in the country going at it. You can't ask for any better. It's going to be some prime time hoops tonight. I mean, this weekend was terrific. I mean, that comeback, straight up unbelievable. I mean, I don't know what we're in store for tonight, but I guarantee you, if we even get a tenth of what Kris Jenkins gave us back in 2016, then all basketball fans can rejoice. If you were looking to make a difference with Phil Martelli, head on over to pnjmakeadifference.com. That is where you can get in touch with Phil to share your story with him. That's how you can help Phil make a difference in the classroom, on the court, off the court, in the workplace, wherever that may be. If you're enjoying the show, we would really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe on YouTube. Give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. We'd really, really love that 5-star rating. That helps people find the show. And of course, we are on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Make a Difference Pod. We are at Make a Diff Pod on X. Make a Difference with Phil Martelli on Facebook. He is Phil_Martelli on Instagram. That is where you can get the Martelli Minute every morning at the behest of Elizabeth Martelli, who has to wake up, unfortunately, as early as you do. I'm sure with the kids, that's about on
and she has to get to school.
Yeah, so maybe you guys are pretty much on the same schedule there. But yeah, head on over to Instagram for the Martelli Minute if you are so inclined. A great championship matchup with a championship guest with us today to see us through. I got nothing left. I mean, that was championship caliber.
No question about that. The only thing I want to add is this: as we go into the spring and we turn this back to community, if you have an idea out there, we do get a lot of ideas, and we want to touch all of those difference makers and have them tell their story. We have some things in the hopper here, so to speak, where we're going to collaborate. We're going to collaborate with people to make sure that we are making a difference, because we know they are making a difference. Any suggestion, we'll turn over the rocks and we'll knock on the doors, because we want to keep this momentum going that is built up through the basketball season.
We're looking to make a difference. That's as simple as we can say it. And we're happy to work with anybody in this greater Philadelphia community to do so, inside and outside of hoops. I mean, we're getting into baseball season a little bit here, and I know you're excited for that.
Yeah, but, we got to straighten out Romano and what's his role going to be in the, and we got to get a couple of the sticks going.
The bats look good. I don't know. You get those torpedo bats.
Did you see some of those numbers? Like, seriously, look at those batting averages. But I will take this. 11 walks yesterday. Got to take that.
They have the lowest
chase rate.
Yeah, in the league. That's improvement. All right. I'm just saying.
After my prayers in the morning, the first thing I check is, what's our magic number?